Hello. Yeah. Very good evening to all the participants, today's speaker, and the chairman of Internal Audit Standards Board, CA Chandrasekhar Chitray sir, and all the participants who have joined online for this webinar. I, CA Rishikesh Badwe, welcome you all to this webinar on internal audit of hotel industry. And we have esteemed speaker, CA Manigandan Krishnamurthy sir from Delhi, who will be dealing in the internal audit of hotel industry today. So I welcome the speaker and Chandrasekhar Chitray sir for this webinar. For the introductory remarks, I'll request Shekhar sir to kindly give his opening remarks on this topic.
Well, thank you, Rishikesh. And I profoundly welcome C.A. Krishnamurthy who is the faculty for this particular webinar. Friends, as you are aware that in case of internal audit, there are various expectations from the auditor. But particularly for the purpose of dispensation of his mandate, there are peculiarity of each industry. And unless we understand nuances of those particular industry, it would not be possible to accomplish the job in a professional manner. So we are coming out with various publication industry specific for the purpose of internal audit. Say in case of chemicals, pharmaceuticals, uh, hotel industry, shipping, there will be various considerations. Say in case of pharmaceuticals, one will have to look at whether the drug has expired, what is the period of expiry, ahead of expiry, whether it can be sold. So these are aspects which are peculiar to pharma industry. In case of hotel like maybe room service, F&B, parties, and so on. So these inputs, if we take, maybe we will be more accomplished in rendering those services. We are soon coming out with publication also on this particular topic. So ahead of publication, I'm sure that we will have insights into it. If you have any questions, maybe you can put those questions in chat box and Rishikesh will ask those questions at the end. And also those questions and the analysis made in this particular section will also add value to the publications which will be coming in this month itself. So with this, I comment this particular webinar, and I once again welcome the faculty. Of course, the team from office is also available, so you can ask those queries, and we will use them in this seminar as well as for the purpose of improving quality of the publication. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank
please.
you for your introductory remarks. And as rightly pointed out by Chitray sir, for carrying out any internal audit, understanding the business of the entity is very important. And as all the participants, you are aware that the profession is moving from ticks to clicks. We are moving in the digital era. We are moving in the paperless era. So in today's discussion, we will be dealing with typical big data analytics and how the profession is evolving around big data and paperless era. So I'll request Krishnamurthy sir to kindly elaborate on that. But before that, I'll just quickly run through the profile of Krishnamurthy sir for the benefit of all the participants. CA Manigandan Krishnamurthy sir, he is a partner at PKF Sridhar and Santhanam LLP, and he is mainly into risk advisory services. He specializes into risk management services, financial consulting, transaction advisory services, forensic services, business process reengineering, process automation, ERM, policy documentation and implementation, IT audits, SOX compliance and implementation, IFCs, that is internal financial control implementation, project assurance, CSR, and governance reviews. He is also a CISA qualified in 2006. And with respect to his firm, he is a business driver of North Indian region of his firm. With this brief introduction, I welcome CA Manigandan Krishnamurthy sir for this webinar. And I request him to kindly take the charge of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rishikesh ji, for the kind words, and thank you very much, Shekhar sir, for this introduction, and thanks for this opportunity, not only for me to speak, but also for the profession colleagues to have this kind of a brainstorming in such a wonderful topic. So when the institute approached, why can't we do a session like this on internal audits in hospitality sector in hotels? I suggested rather than taking the usual internal audit nuances and going into the methodologies of the normal internal audit, why not we give a little difference to this topic? So I said, let's do it as beyond check-ins, how we can strengthen the internal audit mechanism in hotels with big data analytics, mainly data analytics. How do we take this way forward? So thank you, sir, for this platform. With this, I'll start with my session. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for taking out the time for this session today. So I'll just share my screen. I hope my screen is visible to all.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. So when it comes to the hotels, as such as a hotel audit, what is so unique about the hotel industry or hospitality sector? If you see the transactions, what's happening here, more like a retail sector, here the transactions are so high in volume and it's so high in terms of number of POS or number of centers where these transactions are getting created, that is also quite high. So you have multiple revenue streams in a hotel. So if I just take you through for the first 5 minutes on how this hospitality sector works in terms of revenue streams and cost streams, we have the room revenues coming from the sale of rooms. And as against these room revenues, we have, if you see what are the costs involved in it, of course, the sales and marketing costs for the hotel as a whole, the reservation systems, you need to have a reservation system to get these bookings done. And then you have the expenses on guest acquisitions. Then you have the front office checks, the front office allowances. Then the preventive maintenance from the engineering side, where you have to take care of the running and maintenance of the hotel. Then with respect to the equipments, whatever air conditioners or boilers or diesel generators you have in the hotel, you need to have preventive maintenance of that. And then you need to have the room amenities, which is to be taken care from the housekeeping side for maintaining the rooms and also for servicing the rooms to the guests. Then you have the utility costs like gas, diesel, the power, etc. When it comes to the food and beverages as a revenue stream, you have the cost relating to manufacturing or producing these foods. Then you have the beverage cost. Then you have the discounts or the voids, what you do, related costs. And then the training costs across the uniform costs, then the crockery, cutlery, the glassware related costs, specific utilities for the kitchen like LPGs. Then you have the banquet events, which is you would have seen in many hotels. They have banquet spaces where they do functions and marriages, etc. So you have separate service costs for that. You have the setup and tear down costs, audio visual costs, the decorations, which is most important. You would have seen wonderful decorations in marriages. So there's a good amount of cost involved there. Vendors are involved in that. Then, of course, you have the food cost and beverage cost again for the banquets. Then your sales and marketing. You also have a travel desk in every hotel where you arrange for travel charters or where you arrange for vehicles for the guests. And of course, you have the vehicle hiring cost, the fuel cost, third-party commissions if you are engaging a third party. then your technical costs where you are having a GPS system, etc. Similarly, you have some ancillary revenue streams also. It would be a gym membership fee, or it would be a swimming pool membership fee, the relevant costs relating to that. Now, above all this, you have the common costs involved, which is, of course, the human resource cost, which is generally 40% of the overall cost in a company for any hotel. Then you have the capex cost, which is the most important, the initial capex, what you incur in building the hotel and putting up the facilities. Then you have the compliance cost, administrative, and the most important, information technology cost. Now, why I'm giving this idea is for us to even go into any audit angle to it, we need to first understand what are all the factors or what are all the points where our concentration should be. Of course, for each of these line items, what I just read out now, we can write a audit procedure. We can say how it has to be validated, how revenue leakage is to be fixed. Is there any possibilities where somebody can do a fraud that has to be detected by an audit procedure? So all these audit procedures can be built up in and around all these activities. But when it comes to data analytics around this, what is that we need to look for? So before going into that, we also have certain uniqueness in the hospitality sector relating to the controls. If you see this kind of hospitality setup, the controls are generally decentralized. You would have most of these operational controls decentralized at the outlet levels, at the restaurant levels, or at the department levels. And when it comes to audit, because of this kind of high volumes, always traditionally the practice in hospitality has been that you take some amount of data as a sampling and you do the audit with that. You don't get into 100% data. So let's take an example. Traditionally, the audits, people used to have the invoice copies, the allowance vouchers, and other documents, and they would be taking samples transactions and they would verify, which would not exceed 0.5% of the overall value or volume of data what you're handling. Then it evolved into analytics where we took Excel sheets. So what we did, we downloaded data reports and we started verifying our checkpoints through that data. But that also would be limited to maybe a month's data at any given point of time, because you would not be able to handle that volume of data at a given shot. So that's the uniqueness in this industry. And so it warrants us to have something like a big data analytics here. Now, before I go into the big data analytics, let me try to give a perspective on how there is an evolution happening in this sector. Let's take reservations, for example. Those are the days where we would have travel agents across various cities. So suppose someone wants to go for a holiday, say to London. You may have to contact a travel agent in India. He would be contracting an agent in London, and from there they would identify some hotels that would come out as a proposal to you. So there would be a lot of to and fro communications between the parties, and then you will have a final reservation done in a hotel, or even for booking flight tickets, etc. Now, today, this has totally evolved into AI technology. It has evolved into AI-based assistants just helping you from your screen with the best offers, what's available in the market, with the best city where you have to go for a holiday, with the best category of room, what you should take, with the best of offers, what that particular hotel has, where you would get the best value for the money what you're actually spending. We have evolved that much in technology now. If you take reservations, again, the pricing part of it, today we are totally into predictive analytics in pricing. You have dynamic pricing for the hotels. Nobody today fixes a particular rate. Those are the days when there used to be a rack rate for every hotel. and the tax authorities, they used to levy something called a luxury tax based on the rack rate, where the rack rate will never change in its lifetime. But as and when the party comes into the hotel, they would offer some special rates, which is less than the rack rates. But today, it's totally upside down. You don't have this concept of fixed rates. Everything is dynamic in nature. The data sources are available in such a way that the booking trends, the seasonal demands, the local events, what's happening in that particular city, the weather, and also the guest behavior, what the guest preferences are, based on this data sources are available, and you have huge data. Now, with this huge data, you're able to predict what is going to be the rate, what is going to be the best pricing which the hotel can offer. They can predict what is going to be the occupancy, what is going to be the demand fluctuations. And based on all this, they can go with a pricing algorithm, and the machine applies this pricing algorithm, and using the machine learning models, they can get optimal rates which can be offered to parties. Now, you could see this in multiple websites, OTA websites, where you have these kind of mechanisms where it finds out what is the best available rate for you. And pretty sure that would be 99.9% the most best and optimal pricing which you would get. The same way, if you go to check-in process, anybody going into a hotel, you have to check in into the hotel. That's the first process any guest goes through. You would be able to identify what is this. These are old-time book registers which the hotels would maintain, where anybody who's checking in will have to actually write what is their details all about, from where they are coming, where are they going to go, what is their passport number, etc. From there, we moved on to guest registration cards, which are more system oriented, where people were again filling it, and then it was pushed back into the system. From all these systems, now we have evolved to an electronic age where guest directly signs in an iPad, and he gives the details there, and automatically the check-in happens from there. Or even further down, you don't even have a reception desk in a hotel. You directly go to a kiosk like this, and you put in your information, you register yourself with a valid proof of ID, and then you register your facial recognition, so that directly when you go to the hotel room, you use your facial recognition and just get into the room. Another evolution, if you see the room access, you're going to the rooms. Those days are where there would be, you would have seen something like this. This is actually a key room where you would have all the keys laid out in a structure number-wise, and the receptionist would take a particular key and give it to you. So with this, they would be able to identify which are the rooms which are used or which are not occupied currently. But today, from there, you are actually gone to a different electronic age where you don't need to even go to a counter to collect a key. As soon as you finish your check-in process, the key automatically comes into your mobile phone. And with the RFID technology, you just walk into your room, and with the mobile phone, you can open the lock and you can just get into the rooms. This is a kind of evolution which is happening. So if you take mini bars, so you go into the room, you are finding a mini bar where you find chocolates, cool drinks, etc. You would have seen this or experienced this, where once you check out of the hotel, when you come back to the reception, people would say you have to wait because somebody has gone to the room to check what are the items which have been consumed in the mini bar. We will wait for that information, and then we will have to bill you. Then we will have to give you the final receipt. So please wait. And they'll make you wait for 15-20 minutes. Today, that is all gone, and you have micro sensors based minibar systems where any item you lift up, and for say 3 minutes or 4 minutes, if the same weight or volume is not placed there, system would automatically recognize that that particular item has been consumed, and it automatically posts entry into the system as a minibar transaction. So this kind of evolution, it not only is in the operations side from the guest perspective, but also in the behind the screen. You take preventive maintenance. So in a hotel, you would have a lot of equipments and rooms, especially rooms where it would need preventive maintenance on a continuous basis. So what happens in a hotel industry is that the engineering department continuously has checklists. It has a schedule of calendar where they have to go and specifically do preventive checks, say in the generators or in the boilers or in the other equipments or even the cold storage equipments in the kitchen, etc. Now, to do all that, they need to have a schedule. Now, in a traditional method, whether there is a problem in that equipment or not, whether there is a issue in the room or not, they have to 100% do all these activities. And there's always a big time challenge in actually executing the work, and for the auditor also to verify whether this preventive checks are actually happening on a periodic basis or not. It was all in manual records. You will have to verify that. So again, you will end up checking a couple of samples and you will see whether they have done the work or not. But today that is moving towards something else. You have sensors, you have IoT, Internet of Things sensors put into the equipments or into the rooms, where instead of going on a reactive approach, where a complaint comes and you go and then rectify something, or you go on a scheduled check, you actually go on a proactive approach. How you go on a proactive approach? These sensors, these IoTs sense data. It sends information as to where things are going wrong. It will give a prediction that there is a problem which is coming up in this machinery, and so you will have to immediately attend to it. So before even something occurs as an incident, people go and they attend to that machinery. The same way it is in the cold storage rooms or into any of these activities. So the maintenance, what is performed when it is actually required. So the optimal utilization of that manpower also is taken care of this. So automatically your cost effectiveness will also come into picture because of this. And second is, it's only performed when it is required. Hence, it is most time effective. It will not be too time consuming. And three, it prevents the equipments from failures in the first place rather than things going wrong. So because of that, of course, you will have benefits out of this by cost savings, etc. Now, why I am saying all this is from an age of manual records or semi-manual records. Now today, the hospitality industry itself is evolving to a technology-based approach where all activities, operations are done more techno-savvily. So it'll be actually giving a lot of data input. So if you see in all these instances, what I gave in the past few slides, it's the data collection. It's a data point which is getting collected in various departments, in various touch points in a hotel, which actually gives a huge data repository, which in itself can be used for taking insights on performance of the hotel or performance of the respective departments, etc. That's most important here. So that's why I wanted to run through these examples. So what we can do with these data points, why it is helpful to us, that's where the big data analytics comes into picture. I will get into this. Before that, what I want to say is, if the hospitality sector is moving towards this kind of techno-savvy based operations, are the auditors also not required to equip themselves to move towards this kind of an environment? A lot of data is available, and how the auditors are supposed to use that data to have an effective control mechanism, to have an effective internal audit. That's what I wanted to I wanted to say. Now, if I'm going to just say to the auditors that, no, from today onwards, you will have to start using big data and you'll have to start working towards this kind of technology related shift. First question would be why? What's going to be the benefit out of it? So I want to run through this. There are some key 5 benefits which I'm going to show because of evolving from a traditional audit approach to an analytical audit approach. What is that we can achieve? So first point is most important for this kind of a volume-based industry, where the per transaction value would be very insignificant for the financials as a whole. But the volume is so big that you will have to considerably cover a good amount of coverage in your audit. Why not try a 100% data population audit instead of a sample-based audit? In a traditional approach, I don't have a choice. I have to necessarily go by a sample-based audit approach. Whereas when I go with a data analytical approach, I have an opportunity here to handle more data. There are systems available today. There are mechanisms available today where we can take a bigger data universe and we can play around with that to identify what are the insights coming of it and what are the findings we could get as an exception, and then deep dive into the process based on the insights or based on the insights what we are getting. I hope you all understand. To just brief it again, I'm saying instead of directly jumping into the process-based audit, why not have a audit analysis done with 100% data where possible? And why not take the insights from the data first, and based on the inputs what we get as an exception or as a finding, we can go ahead and do a deep dive into that process and then come out with root cause analysis and then come out with recommendations and impacts, etc. So this, when we do, the value add to the industry is much more, and they would be getting more beneficial out of our audit exercise rather than seeing the audit as only a compliance activity or a fault finding activity. The next benefit is periodicity. Why an auditor should do an audit only on a periodic basis, say once in a quarter or once in half year or once in a year? Mostly in hotels, if you see, considering the cost, they would always look for once in a year audit. Why is that the findings, or why is that the corrections which are to be done in the processes or in this kind of data points, why it should happen with the dependency on the auditor, or why it should happen with the dependency on periodicity of the audit? Can't this be done continuous? With this kind of big data analytics approach, actually, this is quite possible. We would be able to do the audit on a real-time basis, where to the best for the benefit of the hotel, the auditors need not be there physically in the hotel for this kind of real-time audits. You can place software programs like, say, Python. You can have a Python script or a Python program available in the system. You can schedule reporting schedules where the reports will automatically get generated from the respective systems, whether it is POS or PMS. Those data inputs can be taken in, and the Python scripts can run itself on that data, and it can come out with insights on a daily basis, and it can push into the system, or it can push into the users, either the auditors or the auditees. Now, the best part here is what? We have been speaking for quite a while now that the audit is a third line of defense for any organization. Internal audit is a third line of defense. There is a second line of defense. This third line of defense is only to monitor at an overall level. It is not to give you a continuous insight. This has been discussed. So for taking these organizations to the next maturity level in audits, ideally what has to happen is there has to be self-audits happening at the second line of defense before the third line of defense comes into picture. Now, these kind of real-time monitoring audits, where you put a system, you put a program, and it throws out these exceptions, this can actually act as a initiating tool for this self-audit, where these exceptions will be taken out and it will be given to the users. The users can take actions on a then and there basis. The auditor, when he comes in a periodic basis, he can concentrate more on the design elements of the controls rather than getting into this transaction levels. And he would take the output of these systems, which is already generated, and he would see what the management has taken action on, whether have they corrected these before, whether was there any frauds identified because of these inputs. He would be able to get that qualitative time during the audit to go and deep dive and to also take actions on the findings. The next one is on the error identification, or I would say the outcome of the auditor. It was manual error identification. So we used to have a time-consuming process. We used to do a lot of analysis in Excel sheets. Of course, it is prone to human error. Even an auditor would do errors. There is an audit risk always there. Now, to avoid these audit risks, we can concentrate more on writing these programs and do an automated audit approach where this would not miss out the errors, and it would come out with real-time analysis. It would come out with a broad data scope. It would come out with proactive insights as to what things could go wrong. And based on that, we can write our reports. The last one is most important where, or last but one, where it is most important. The traditional hotel audits, there used to be a night auditor. Apart from the internal audit, whatever happens, there is always a night auditor who sits there in a hotel industry. Whoever is familiar with hospitality industry would know this, that traditionally this night auditor would literally work in the night. He would come in the evening, he will sit over the night to see all the transactions which happened during the day. And in the early morning, he would leave out his reports to the CFO or to the management, where it is quite labor intensive. The manual data collection has to happen. You won't believe, I have seen 20 years before when I started the career in hospitality sector, I have seen people having bundles and bundles of checks or bills, what has come from the respective boss or the restaurants. And people used to sit and tick mark and check all these bills. And then they would come on, give out a report. Now, how effective is this kind of an audit? Is it practically even possible to have a 100% output from this kind of an labor-intensive audit? Rather, why not replace this night auditor with a robo, which will do these activities on a daily basis, which would run out and give real-time data, which would have a very high accuracy, which would not have sleepless nights because there's no day or night for it. And it would continuously monitor the transactions, what's happening in all the outlets. And the last most important, descriptive reports. We have always been writing internal audit reports on a descriptive manner as to what could go wrong, what happened, what was the objective, how did things went wrong, what was the impact of it, what is the recommendation, all this. Now, can we try something different from this side? Can we go towards prescriptive and predictive insights where we can give data points? We can write reports with programs like Power BI, where you don't need to write descriptive reports, but you can give out the real-time usable charts where you can go and see what is the sensitivity, and we can come out with outcomes like that. That would be possible in this kind of big data analytics. Now, what is big data analytics? We discussed what are the benefits, but what is this big data analytics? We'll take 2 minutes time on this. So with evolving technologies, with vast, complex, structured and unstructured data, which is getting generated, we are having data coming out or information coming out of transactions. Transactions is nothing but your bills, your invoices, what you've generated, or your allowances, what you've created, your void transactions, etc. Then the operational data points. For example, if you're having a room and if you're having an electronic key, any person using that room, for every entry and for every exit, you're going to have a timestamp. in the system. So that's a data point. You are having a diesel generator. So every time when the generator pops up, when the power supply cuts off, and when the DG pops up, there is a data point which is created there. It says what time it started, what time it shut down, and what is the fuel efficiency, what is the fuel usage. So these are all data points which are coming from the operational side. The customer behavior. Today, you are not, no more you are giving your customer feedbacks in cards or in physical forms. You get a link and you give as a guest, the guest gives the feedback. He gives the preferences. He wants to know how the hotel is aware of his preferences, whether are they taking care of those preferences. So he gives a lot of data there. And you have external data sets. Now, today, there are reports, published reports available in the market where you can, as a hotel, the hotel can take ComSet reports and it can benchmark its pricing, benchmark its occupancy with the peer hotels or the competition hotels in the market. And it can find out where it stands, whether the pricing, it is fixed, is in alignment with the competition, or are they losing business to the competition because of their higher pricing. That kind of analytics is available today, and that's kind of a data sets are available. Apart from this, you have unstructured data sets. I'll give you an example. Structured data set is something like you have it in your system. You have a POS machine, you have a PMS system. In PMS system, it captures what is the time of check-in, what is the time of checkout, what is the time of payment, what is the time of settlement by the guest. All this is captured. But when it comes to unstructured data, just think if there is a travel desk, and if the travel desk is maintaining a logbook manually, and that logbook has data of airport pickup and airport drop. Now, you as an auditor, you are seeing a transaction where somebody has been shown as checked out of a hotel room, say at 4 o'clock in the evening. Now, you want to really rely upon and see whether this 4 o'clock is reliable or not reliable. Whether really that person checked out only at 4 o'clock or what time he checked out. So if you see the airport pickup drop data for that particular guest, same name, you are finding that he was dropped in the airport at 2 o'clock in the airport. So that means he is not checked out at 4, he is checked out at 2 o'clock. But in the system, you are made to believe that he is checked out only at 4 o'clock. So I will be coming with some case studies there. You will understand more what relevance this makes. But what I'm trying to say here is this kind of unstructured data sets also are to be corroborated when we do the audit. Definitely today in manual audit also we do this. We take multiple source of information and we compare that and we try to correlate that and see whether it is matching to each other or not. And based on that, we come out with an audit opinion. But when it comes to data analytics, can we do that? Yes, it is quite possible. We can convert these unstructured data sets into a data room. And from there also, we can pick up information and we can do the audit. Now, how this big data analytics happens? It is a process of examining these data sets, what we saw above, to uncover the patterns. There has to be some patterns inside these data sets, and we have to uncover it. We have to find the trends. We have to find the indicators in these data sets. We have to find the insights in these data sets. And based on that, we will have to come out with the outcome. Now, briefly, I will touch upon the tools, what can be used for these big data analytics in the audits. I would not go deep into it. I would rather want to concentrate on some use cases. I would also want to concentrate on some important elements where we need to get the insight or where we need to get that intuition with which we can start this big data analytics process. So I would rather go into those thought processes rather than getting too much into the tools. But if you see from the open source perspective, we have open source tools today like Python, where you don't need to pay any license cost. You don't need to pay any perpetual license cost, etc. It's available free of cost for you to download. Only time investment and investment on learning how to write the programs in the Python is what is important today. It can be used for data cleaning. We saw unstructured data sets. We can easily use this kind of tools to convert those unstructured data sets into a structured data. One solid example, the same register, let's take from the travel desk. If I'll have to take a scan copies of those registers, and if I can do a OCR scan run in Python and take data from that and convert it into a proper data set, which can be used for my correlation. It can be used for fraud detection models. It can be used for continuous monitoring systems. We were discussing about continuous monitoring as one of the benefit, where we spoke about real-time audit happening on a daily basis. So we can use Python scripts for that. Then we can use, in big data, we can use Apache Spark, where it can be used for large transaction logs. Just imagine if instead of thinking about one single hotel, if we think about, say, 100 hotels of a hotel chain in India, and you are sitting and doing an audit in one place of all these 100 hotels, is it possible? Is it possible to take that kind of a data volume and do the audit? It's quite possible, where we can use this kind of tools, where it can handle that kind of a big, large data I'm trying to give an example to you. In case of one single hotel, for a year, the journal transaction ledger, the journal by department code, say in an Opera system, in any typical hotel, would be going into terabytes of data. So it would be going into crores of line items of data in an Excel sheet, I would say. Then coming to automation, you can use Power Automate for triggering alerts and to find out if there is a risk breach. So you can set trigger alerts into the real-time monitoring systems, where if somebody gets into such kind of data, one example, typically I would say, we always take the user log of people as to who logs in into the system, and we compare with the attendance records of that particular day to see if somebody is absent, but their ID is being used. So that means what? Their ID is being compromised, or it is being shared with somebody else. What is the risk in this? The risk is tomorrow, if there is a fraud happening, and if you identify that fraud and if you start investigating, you would not be able to identify the right responsibility, who would be responsible for that transaction of fraud. You would not be able to fix responsibilities. So to avoid that scenarios, we should always be very careful that this user IDs are not shared with others. So we can actually do trigger alerts with this, where it will automatically send a message to the, say, general manager of the hotel that somebody is misusing somebody else's ID because this person is not there in the hotel today. So that kind of a triggering approach we can create. Then visualization. Whatever audit we do, if we don't represent or visualize it in a structured way, if we don't give real-time dashboards, people would not see value to our work. People would not appreciate that the auditor is actually contributing to the growth of that particular company or to that particular sector. So for that purpose, we need to actually bring these real-time dashboards, and it would be very, very value additional for the clients. Commercial audit analytic suites are also available, like ACL, like IDEA, which are similar to the above items where people can use for data analytics. Now, what is the foundation for this big data analytics? So there are 5 V's I would call I will explain here only about the hotel audit context in terms of big data analytics. Now, these 5 V's are very, very important when it comes to data analytics. The first one is, which is very important, which is the volume. You have millions of transactions across the hotel systems. You have multiple systems in the hotel. You will have a separate software for the front office, for the property management system. You will have a separate system for the food and beverage sales. You would have a separate system for the preventive maintenance. There are multiple systems and there are huge volume of data. So that's the first, I would say, foundation. The second one is the velocity. Now, 24/7 real-time transactions happen in this industry. You would not find any hotel sleeping. There's no concept of any five-star hotel or any three-star hotel closing their gates or saying that nobody would be working in this particular place. You would have even their own staff cafeteria running overnight. So it's actually 24/7 real-time activity. That means our analytics should support that kind of a thing. Then third is a variety. You have a variety of data sets available in this hotel industry. We discussed about the structured, unstructured, and semi-structured. Fourth is the veracity. Now, what is the veracity? Are data quality challenges. The hotels often operate with multiple disconnected systems sometimes. Not every hotel will have an integrated software or an interface between the systems. You would always have data losing its continuity when it passes through from one system to another system. You would always have a data reconciliation issue between one and the other system. So this disconnect, it will create reliability issues on the data. So you need, this also is to be taken as one of the important foundations for doing the data analytics. And last but not the least, the value. So the value focuses on the extracting actionable insights from this data that drives into real control improvements and financial benefits to the hotel, to the management. So this all has to be taken care when we do the data analytics. So the hotel specific data sources, you see, it would be PMS or it would be the POS, which is there in the restaurants, or it would be the IoTs. IoT is the Internet of Things, where you have RFID based systems or other systems which will be put into the machinery, which will be used for collecting data. And then the social media reviews. There are multiple people writing reviews in the social media about the hotel experience. So that also are the data points to be collected from. And then the loyalty programs. So I just thought I will go back to this revenue stream slide just to indicate these are the low-hanging fruits where we can play around with big data analytics very easily. I will take up some use case in the upcoming slides, and then we can discuss. Mr. Arun, I have some more time if I'm right. Okay, I presume I have more time. So coming to the application of data analytics, the room revenue assurance, let's take. For today's discussion, let's take only a couple of use cases and let's go a little detail into it so that we get some good insights out of this. Maybe in another session, we will get into more detailed data analytics ideas. So if you take the front office or the room revenue, the key risk scenarios, if you take, it's the cash leakage scenarios where fictitious allowances or paid outs are being done. And because of such fictitious allowances, people make money and they fill in their pockets. Or you have unauthorized rate changes where somebody is entered into a contract with the hotel. Say they have taken a hotel room, say for 10,000 rupees, and they come in, they pay in cash 10,000 rupees as and when they check in. Somebody plays around with the rates. They change the rate from 10,000 to 8,000, and they show in the system as if 8,000 is the amount which is actually charged to the guest, and they pocket balance 2,000. This is also a cash leakage issue. The third one is again cash leakage on upsell. Somebody is booked a luxury premium room and he goes into the hotel. He's been offered saying, we have an amazing suite here. You can look into the suite if you wish. Just by paying 5,000 rupees extra, you can get upgraded or upsold to that particular suite. So the person sees and he pays in cash this 5,000. in the system, he is supposed to be upsold. When it is upsold, that means he has to be changed from the premium category to the suite category. And his rate of room also is to be changed from, say, 10,000 to 15,000. But what people can do to take the cash out is, instead of doing the upsell, he would record it as upgrade with the reasoning saying he's a frequently visiting guest. So we are giving him an upgrade free of cost. And they would book it as 10,000 in the books. But when it comes to the collection of money, they would have collected 15,000 from the guest, and they would have given him a duplicate invoice, which is not even generated from the system, which the guest would never recognize. So by that, they would pocket the cash. The fourth one is again cash leakage, where original cash transaction is there. Somebody has paid 10,000 rupees, 10,000 is recorded. Then what I do, once the guest goes into the hotel, I reverse this 10,000 transaction. The original transaction debit of credit of 10,000 and the reversal debit of 10,000. I take both these transactions and move it out of the folio, out of this particular invoice, and I take it to, say, some other account like lost postings account. Very interesting thing. What is a lost posting? Now, you have various systems in the hotel. One is this POS, one is the PMS. Now, this POS speaks with the PMS through an interface. Every time when you are there in a hotel, when you go and have some food in the restaurant, when you're settling the bill, you don't directly pay there. You tell him, you please post it into my room. So they post in your room. That automatically goes as an entry in the PMS system through this interface. Now, whenever there is a breach in this interface because of some technical error, this transaction, what is getting posted in the restaurant, will actually go and fall into this lost postings account. So this is a reconciliation account where end of the day, somebody will have to go into this account and see what are the balances left out in this account. And they'll have to find out where it should have been posted. They should go and manually post it and close this account with a zero balance. But what these guys do, they will transfer both this original cash transaction and the reversed cash transaction into this lost postings account manually. And because both debit and credit has gone there, the system will not show any balance in the lost postings. So the night auditor or anybody in the end of the day would have not seen those transactions lying there. And after removing this cash transaction, somebody would post an allowance entry and say that the guest was not satisfied because of this food. So there was an allowance given, and they would even take approval from their bosses, because allowance transactions, taking approvals for allowance is very, very normal in a hospitality industry. So with that, they would go and post the cash settlement transaction only for the balance value, and they would pocket that amount of allowance into their pocket. The same way, splits and transfers. So these allowances, when they pass and they do a fraud, instead of reducing the cash. So for example, somebody is not settling in cash and they are settling in credit card. Today, most of the people settle by credit card or by UPI. That means I cannot put an allowance entry and take the cash out. There's no cash to take it up. So what I can do, I will use that allowance. I'll pass one allowance entry. I will pay a paid out in the name of doing a refund to that particular guest. And then I would take that allowance transaction and I would split it into, say, 4 components. If there is an allowance of 2,000 rupees, I will split it into 500, 500, 500, 500 and put it into 4 other guests who are there in the hotel today and post it there. As and when that guest comes to check out, I will take it again from there, again split it into small transactions and post it into various other accounts. I will make it so small that when it is actually getting allowanced in a particular transaction, the approving authority would not even question, because it is all small allowances. And nobody would have seen it collectively as to what is the total amount of allowance which is happening in that hotel. And it would have got missed out and people would have made money out of it. So actually the study says, there are some studies in 24 which came out saying the industry average in terms of fraud loss is 5 to 6%. And if you do analytics, when there is a backbone in analytics this can be reduced to less than 1% in the hotel industry. Now, there are various red flag patterns which are available. Now, why I'm indicating these red flag patterns? Actually, these are the KPIs or these are the inputs for your programming in the big data analytics. When you do big data analytics, what is that logic which you're going to put is more important than what tool you're going to use or how you are going to do it. That is not actually very important. That's very secondary. But what you are going to use as a logic for designing your analytics, that's what is more important. That's why I thought I should highlight these red flag issues to you. It could be frequent rate adjustments after guest checkouts, where the guest has checked out, then I'm going and changing the rates and I'm making money out of it. Unusual patterns in room upgrades. We discussed about the upgrade idea. Then transactions processed on deleted reservations. There was a reservation. Somebody canceled that reservation. I didn't cancel it. There is a concept of retention money in the hotels. So if suppose last minute I do a cancellation, I will not get a refund. As a guest, I don't get a refund. That goes as a revenue to the hotel. Now, the front office guy, instead of showing this as a cancellation or a no-show in the system, he would keep it alive. He would wait for another guest to come in who pays in cash and put that guy into this cancelled reservation, and he would make double revenue. One revenue will go to the hotel, another revenue will go to his home. So this kind of fraud would be possible. Unusual timing patterns for void transactions. If there are unusual timings, like you find that front office void transactions are happening every day at 1 o'clock by a particular user, that means there is something seriously wrong where that particular user is trying to do some things at the time of night audit. Mismatch between occupied rooms and the revenue. There are 100 rooms, 80 rooms are occupied, whereas the revenue what comes up to on an overall basis, it is equal to only that of a 75. So where is that revenue going? So this kind of red flags can be used for our data analytics. But when we get into this data analytics, what is that we should do? There's a concept of sequence-based testing for finding these exceptions. Now, what is this sequence-based testing? I'll take few minutes to explain to you how this sequence-based testing work. And this is again a logic. This logic you can apply on a big data to arrive at a huge set of exceptions in a given set of data. Now, let's assume I'll take you through a voucher. Let's assume there is a invoice like this. You find that, see, generally what happens in the hospitality industry in PMS systems is you have multiple screens for a given room. So you would have one screen where all the transactions of that particular room is coming. The guest, suppose he says, I want to get the reimbursement of my stay from my office. So, but I'm not eligible for any food bills. So you please remove all these food bills and you give it to me in a separate bill, and you give me only the invoice for room revenue. If he asks like this genuinely, there has to be a facility for them to do that. So for that, what they do is they transfer the other charges to another window, and they create two windows, and they will create two invoices, one invoice for routes, one invoice for this. Similarly, there is a practice that if suppose the guest comes and stands for a checkout, there are timelines which they need to follow, turnaround times which they need to follow. As per hospitality standards, people would say 5 minutes, not more than 5 minutes a guest should take for doing this sign out and for doing the checkout process in a hotel, and he should be sent out. So that 5 minutes, if you have to achieve, you cannot do everything sequentially in the system. So what people do, if suppose there is a genuine allowance which is happening, and let's take this particular case, there was a late checkout charge which was levied for 3,000 rupees to the guest. And the guest last minute, when he comes to the checkout desk, he says that no, while doing the reservation itself, I had discussed this with the reservations. They had given me a rate, including that of this late checkout. How can you charge me extra? So when they ask this, the front desk verifies whether really that is the case with the reservation. And then he would do a checkout without levying these charges by doing a revoke. Now, he would not wait for doing this revoke. He would not wait for the guest to be staying there for completing this process. So what he would do is, he would move these charges and the revoke transaction into a separate window, and he would keep the other transactions in one window, complete the checkout process, and give the final invoice to that guest, and he will send him off. And then later he would sit and patiently do this revoking process, and he would close the invoice. This is a genuine case. Now, we are seeing one invoice like this when we do a traditional audit. We are seeing one invoice for the transactions, one invoice for this late checkout and the revoke. By seeing this document, would we be in a position to say the sequence of when actually this revoke happened, when actually this allowance happened, and was it before the cash payment done by the party or after? That we would not be able to guess or come out with, because the information would not be available in this kind of printouts. So what I can do for that in data analytics? If I go to the full data, let's take the same allowance transaction. We could see that if I take all these transactions, irrespective of the folios, if I take it from the system directly and if I put it in sequential order of transaction time, then if I see all the transactions, my cash settlement, the last cash settlement done in that particular folio was at 1735 hours. Whereas if I see the allowance transactions, I have done 2 allowance transactions after 1735. That means once the settlement is done with the party, if I'm doing the allowance, there is always a high possibility that if there is a cash transaction involved in that settlement, I am actually doing the allowance without the knowledge of the guest. I am actually doing the allowance for the sake of removing cash, misappropriating cash from that cash settlement transaction, rather than being a genuine transaction. So if I had done this on a genuine basis, then my allowance entry would have been done before the cash settlement is done by the guest. Now, with this, what will happen? You would be actually identifying in a big set of transactions. You will identify all the allowances which are lying after the last settlement entry in each of those room entries, and you would be able to pull out all those exceptions. Now, out of say 25,000 allowance transactions in rooms over a year, if you do this manually, you would not be able to achieve anything beyond, say, 20 transactions or 30 transactions. But when you do this kind of an analytics, you would be able to distinguish between a genuine transaction and a transaction where there is a possibility of pocketing, cash pocketing. And you would be able to filter out those exceptional transactions and now go into those transactions on a deep dive basis. So whatever 20 you will see a sample will all be exception based 20 samples. So that means your hit ratio in terms of observations would be quite high, and you would be getting very good results out of this. So if you find this kind of a pattern, most of it would end up into a fraud. Similarly, the same thing applies to a paid out also. I'm doing a paid out transaction after a cash settlement. So that means what? If suppose somebody is settling in cash, say in 500 notes. Today, the highest denomination what we have is 500 notes. And if someone is settling in cash, say for 20,000 rupees, okay, income tax limits, let's take 15,000 rupees. And 15,000 rupees cash, what is received, if there has to be a paid out against it, either you need to have excess cash received or you need to have an allowance which you are doing after the cash settlement. Now, if there is no allowance after the cash settlement and you are just doing a paid out, then this 20,000 cash, what you have received would not be complete in nature. You would not just receive excessively from the guest and then you will unnecessarily go and pay him back in a paid out. You would definitely take cash only to that extent of the bill amount, what you have to collect. Now, here again, how this sequencing works, if the paid out is coming after the last settlement transaction, and if it is with a combination of an allowance, then there is a direct possibility that somebody is playing around with the paid out. Now, this is another scenario. The next scenario is negative transactions. Now, what happens in a PMS system is when you pass transaction entries, when you do a room charge is called a revenue code. And corresponding to that revenue code, you will have a room charge allowance code, which is a negative code. Now, for every revenue code, there will be an allowance code also available in these systems. Now, when somebody is doing an allowance, let's assume that the hotel has a very good practice of taking allowance reports on a daily basis. It is not only verifying the allowance vouchers, it is also taking the full list of allowance transactions, what has taken place during the period, and it analyzes. So the guy knows somebody will be seeing my allowance report. So they would question me, why did you do this allowance? So what he does, instead of using the allowance code, he is actually using the revenue code itself as room charge. But instead of typing 100, 200 in positive, he is actually putting the amount in negative. So this is called negative entries in the revenue code. Now, any person not analyzing this revenue codes, and if the front office guy knows that nobody watches this negative codes, what he would do is wherever he has to do cash misappropriations, he would directly go and do it in the revenue code. By passing an entry, after the guest checks out, he will go to the revenue code and he will pass a negative entry in the revenue code. And to that extent, there will be additional cash available in the credit side. He will misappropriate that as a paid out. Now, this kind of transactions, analyzing these transactions and coming out with exceptions based on this logic of time is called sequencing. This is one important logic which you can use while doing the analytics. Like this, there are various other analytical logics which are available. You can even keep on speaking about it for a whole day on what all such KPIs can be used for such analytics. When it comes to the F&B, why to leave out the food side of it? What could be the red flags there? You have void in cash settled bills and it is not acknowledged by the chef. Means somebody is having food, 10,000 rupees is the bill, and it is later voided in the system with the reason in that saying the guest was not satisfied with the food. There was hair particles available in the food. Like this, there are notes given and the whole amount has been voided and it's a cash transaction. That means we don't know whether the cash was received and then it was voided or whether it was a genuine cash, genuine void settlement. So in this case, ideally the control should be the chef in such cases should review, should go and see the food, should go and speak with the guest and find out really was there a problem. And he would do a sign off saying really there was a problem in the cash settled bill. And so I am approving it to be voided. Now, in such kind of scenarios, you have an concrete evidence that it is not a fraud. But if you don't have involvement of chef or anybody from the kitchen, you can always find this kind of transaction as an exception for probing more to see if there is a fraud. Another analytical angle. There are 10,000s of invoices raised in a restaurant every day. Now, every table will be allocated a number, and in the billing system, all these tables, what is there in physical form will also be mapped in the system as table numbers. So when you open a table, when you take the order, when you punch those items and the KOT is getting printed into the kitchen, only at that time the kitchen should ideally start cooking food. Until the KOT is printed, they are not supposed to cook the food. Why this control is there? It is to ensure that there is no revenue leakage. The food is sold, for every food prepared is actually sold, every item sold is actually being collected for. This control, to take care of this control, revenue assurance, this kind of KOT control is there. Now, what you can see in patterns in terms of data analytics is, if you see the between one time of a table and the final bill closing time, and if you find that the time interval is so short that it's just 5 minutes, but the number of items what is ordered, you see there are 10 people sitting and eating, but you just see 5 minutes gap between opening time and the printing time, bill printing time. That means what? There is a possibility that the order has gone into the kitchen not through the KOT but manually, and somebody has prepared the food and it has come, but just before the guest is going out of the hotel, they are preparing the bill in the system, and then they are printing the bill and they are giving it to the guest. That's why there is a short pattern. But what is the insight coming out of this? If this is possible, it is always possible that the kitchen is preparing food without a KOT. That means your revenue assurance concept itself is compromised. That kind of an insight you would get by this kind of an analysis. Unusual patterns and split checks. You have Dutch bills, people going for a date. Youngsters are here, so people are going for a date with another person, and you are deciding to have a Dutch bill end of the date where you're splitting the bill. So there is a genuine reason for having these split checks in hotels. You would also find that when you go on a business trip, you find an acquaintance there from another business group. He comes and discusses with you over a breakfast table, but you want to split the invoices. You don't want to bear each other's bill. So they do the split check and they get it into two bills. But what is the risk behind this? If I will have to do a fraud similar to that of what we saw in the room revenues, there can always be possibilities where I will split these checks and I'll keep transferring. So whenever I've done a void, the partial voids, I'll take those partial voids, I'll split from the check. Instead of passing a void entry, I'll split it out of the check and I'll keep moving it to various things. Sorry. Yeah. So I will take another 5 minutes. So the same sequencing model we can use in this in the F&B side also, where we can do a lot of analytics to come out with insights. This is one other typical example for analytics. What people do, you have in hotels, you have this POS machines where each and every item being sold in the menu card is actually coded into the system. So people go and select that item, automatically the pricing comes and automatically bill is raised. That's how revenue assurance is taken care. But there will always be some open codes available. Genuine reasons why these open codes are available. If suppose there is a child food required and that kind of an item is not even there in your menu card, for you to give instructions to the kitchen, they would open these open codes and they would type manually to say this so-and-so food is required, and they would put modifiers and then they would punch the bill with an appropriate rate. Now, what happens from the fraud scenario is people can use these items, open codes, for playing around with the rates. You can see the pattern here. Shahi Paneer generally is 270 rupees, but in one open code, somebody has sold 14 quantities for 250 rupees. In another open code, in another date, somebody had sold 21 quantities in 300 rupees. So that means what? Somebody is playing around with the rates and they are increasing and decreasing it. This ideally should be avoided. So for this, what you can do the analytics to see modifier data analysis, and based on that, you can identify what similar items are charged, and based on that, you can come out with insights and give the observations. This is on the purchase data. We can do another day in detail on purchases. This is all what we can do today as a low-hanging fruit in the hospitality sector. Where we can do wonders with these data analytics, and we can come out with very good insights. Your audit reports would definitely stand apart from any other normal audit report, and you would have a very good client satisfaction also when you give this kind of reports. Now, what is the future? After this, what happens? Where is it going? Where the audit analytics are going for in hotel industry? We are now in Gen AI age. There are natural language investigation queries which can be put, and you can, through Gen AI, do investigations. You can get automated audit reports generated, and the anomaly reasoning can be with the context awareness. Predictive staffing you can do from the operational side by using AI. Tomorrow you can plan your staffing in such a way that you can arrive at an optimal labor cost by having AI-based predictive models. It would determine what would be the occupancy in a particular time period, on what basis they should do the staff planning, how the occupancy is going to drive the scheduling of the staff. Skill-based task can be assigned. So you can use your staffs in a much better, I would say, optimal manner rather than just employing people. Third is most important, we are going towards ESG data assurance. So your carbon footprint monitoring in a hotel, that can be easily monitored with this kind of data analytics, where you are creating a lot of data points. So with that, you would be able to find out what is the carbon footprint. You can see how the supply chain sustainability is taken care. Like with the data points, you would be able to track from which source your materials are coming in, your vegetables are coming in. Then your social impact measurements can be easily done. So there's a huge ocean of opportunities available with data analytics where we can do wonders. Now, definitely from a strategic imperative in this session, I would say the hotels that would fail to adopt analytics-driven audit procedures or approaches today, that will fail, it will fall behind the competitors, and it will face increasing risk exposures. But what I say now, is it applicable only to the hotels? Is it not applicable to the auditors? I would want you to think over. Will auditors not using this kind of technology, will they not fall behind their peers? Will they not lose the opportunities? I would want to conclude here with this question as a thought in your mind. Thank you so much, and I'm open now for the questions. Rishikesh sir, over to you.
Yeah, I'll just check the Q&A box, and yeah.
Rishikesh sir, I could see one question in the question box. Can I read out that?
I could see 8 participants have raised queries, but I'm unable to open those questions.
Okay, so I could see this. Can I read it out? So
Yes, please.
couple of it are more just info, but I'll directly go to the questions. Can we do all these stuffs in IDS, one of the generally used software in the hotel industry? Yes. See, IDS has certain limitations in the data collection. And not very much data reports are available in IDS, which IDS is also working on. I could understand. To the extent of the data available, see what we can always do in this kind of scenarios is we can build the data rather than depending on the ready-made reports what's available in these PMS systems. We should always try to build this data by taking the base data and try to work around on it, do the data massaging on it, and make it more informative. Do the correlation with other unstructured data also, and then start applying your analytics in it. Then you will get a very good outcome from it. Apart from that, I don't see any valid questions here.
Yeah. The participants also require the copy of your presentation.
Yeah, that we'll give it to the institute.
Yeah. Anything more to be added, sir?
We can maybe wait for another half a minute to see if any other questions are getting posted.
Okay. Yeah, one more question has come up.
Yeah, I could
Mani,
see a
sir.
couple of questions.
Sir,
One is
can
for every type of revenue stream in the hospitality industry, the sequencing techniques for fraud findings. Yes, most of the revenue streams, the sequencing would work, but sequencing is just one logic. That's not the only data analytics. Now, whatever logics we apply in writing our audit approach, that we need to apply on this analytics also. Now, one of the very famous logics is the sequencing logic, which we use. That's why I gave that as an example. Definitely, it's not just the only one. We can use multiple other logics while designing the data analytics. Next question is, sir, can you please clarify what come under the revenue audit and how such deep we can dig in the transactions for room, for food and beverages. Okay. So the revenue audit or the income audit is nothing but the night audit, what I was mentioning. Generally, in the hotel sector, in all hotels, you would see two people working as auditors. One is the night auditor or the income auditor, who more concentrates on the room revenue, the other ancillary revenues, and the overall collections, etc. And there would be one other auditor called food cost controller, who would concentrate more on the F&B revenue and the cost calculations, how the rates are configured into the system. What is the mechanism for updating the rates, and is the revenue what is generated in the respective restaurants is actually flowing into the PMS system or not? This kind of verifications he would do. Both are more focusing towards revenue audit. The revenue audit is nothing but it is to give an assurance to the management on a daily basis that all the revenues are collected and it is very comprehensive. and nothing is left out. There's no missing revenue. But without analytics and with just manual verifications, definitely an income auditor or a night auditor cannot justify the work what he takes up as a responsibility. That's the reason where this kind of analytics would help, especially if there are income auditors here in this session. For them, these kind of analytics would be very, very useful, where they can come out with these exceptions on a daily basis and concentrate on those exceptions. Even for the internal auditors, practicing internal auditors here, what you can think of is do these analytics and deliver this to the night auditor on a daily basis so that his concentration is more focused on the exceptions. And with that, a good outcome will come from his review. I hope your question is answered there. Next question is, how can we integrate data from Sky HMS software to Tally? So it all depends upon what kind of softwares you use, whether you have an open API and whether you have facility to have API links from one system to another system so that you can do an interfacing. When there is no such interfacing possibility, where the system limitations are there, you can always use bots. Today you have even free licensed bots like Power Automate, which can help in taking the data from one software and doing the massage and posting that data into another software like Tally, where instead of a person sitting and passing those entries, these bots can work and pass those entries. So for that, you can use bots and you can try it. But I don't think so. There is a interfacing possibility between HMS software and Tally system. Next question is, how can we utilize the data analytics for continuous compliance practice? Very much possible. Continuous compliance or continuous monitoring is nothing but you give a set of rules which on a regular basis, say on a daily basis, that rules are applied on the data, and you find out where the problems are and take exceptions as an outcome of it, and then start addressing those exceptions. These exceptions, it is not necessarily fraud related or transaction related. It could be even compliance related. I'll give you an example. In any hotel, if suppose there is a foreigner, non-Indian national coming and staying, they're supposed to file Form C to the nearest police station or to the portal where the this compliance is to be done. So this Form C submission is a mandatory thing that on the same day of check-in, you're supposed to do this. So this is a compliance requirement. Now you can have an analytics in such a way that it will take the external data, which is basically this portal, government portal. It will take the data from the portal. It will compare all the check-ins for the day, end of the day, with that portal entries. And it can come out with an alert saying there are 25 check-ins today with foreign nationals. However, your compliance has been done only for 20. For these 5 people, it is missing. Go and immediately file. Like this, it can give an alert end of the day. By that way, you can ensure compliance also. So this kind of an automation, it's all, you have the freedom to utilize that in various KPIs, various aspects. You will have to study that. You will have to see where it is routine in nature, and we can easily implement this kind of practice. Next question, there are a few limitations of AI, like using robot as a night auditor. It could also cause misuse of data. How to combat that? Yes, it's a very big topic altogether. Of course, data security is very, very important. Whenever you're going to implement this kind of systems, of course, you'll have to take care of the data security. And only upon precautions taken, you can implement this. I agree. AI can do any such things, but we need to have precautionary steps taken, and then based on that, you can implement this. Is there any course available by ICAI to learn data analysis? Mr. Arun, I think you can answer that. You would have some information on the courses available. How to verify the room bar rate in dynamic pricing system, whether there is a manipulation involved or not. Okay, excellent question, I would say. So in a room bar rate, in this kind of a dynamic scenario, what happens is you are actually supposed to analyze the data, and you're supposed to see what bar you're fixed, whether it is appropriate or not, or is the competition having a different bar? Is the competition running a different rate scheme? Whether should you also adjust to it? That you need to verify. You should also see whether the occupancy levels at the city level is how is it, whether it is different, or is there more demand or less demand. Based on that, the hotel revenue management team, they would be actually changing their strategies on the bar rate. Now, they would give you all stories as an auditee that based on this scenarios, we changed the bar from so-and-so to so-and-so. Now, what you need to ask for is, when you do the analysis, when you see that people have gone and changed rates, you take those exceptions and start asking detailed questions on how their bar rate has changed in their platform. So there would be a data engine, or there would be a pricing engine where they go and change these rates. There you can collect the logs as to what rate they have changed at the bar level. So those data points you can collect, you can analyze that as an auditor, and then you can raise your questions on what basis did you change. Provide documentation or supportings to say that the demand went up because of that. As I raised my bar rate, the demand was not picking up at all. I still had a lot of inventory left out, so I reduced the bar rate. Like this, he would give you justifications with some supporting data points. Then you would be able to apply your professional judgment, and you would be able to come out with the judgment on that. Do you think five-star hotels will accept cash? Most of the customers will settle by cards or UPIs nowadays. Cash leakage will not much like old traditional ways. No, I don't accept. I am in Delhi. I will not speak anything beyond that. You can find a lot of cash transactions across the country. I'm not saying just in Delhi, but anywhere there are cash transactions. I am happy you are also like me, that you don't carry any cash, and you always pay in UPI. How to prevent revenue leakage, etc. Example, booked for single occupancy while two people stayed. Is there AI which could help in this? Excellent question again. So there is something called occupancy report, occupancy discrepancy report. So what happens in a hotel industry, independent to the front office, the housekeeping team which goes and replaces the linen, or which goes in the evening for servicing the room, what they do is they have certain training mechanisms to identify how many number of people are staying in a room. So they do their checks, and they independently write a report every day, each and every room number wise, how many number of occupants are there. So this number, they would directly put into the PMS system. End of the day, this discrepancy report will be generated, which will say, as per the housekeeping, what is the occupancy? As per the PMS, what is the occupancy? Where are the discrepancies? Now, this discrepancy is supposed to be analyzed by the front office and by the general managers, etc. And they are supposed to raise questions, why this is different, why there is a discrepancy. Let's go and find in the room if there are additional guests staying. This, what happens if the front office guy is glove in hands, he is the one who has taken additional money and was allowed double occupancy in that particular room, then of course you would not be able to find it from the front office guy. So you need to have a mechanism to take all these reports as an auditor, and independently you should question and see why this discrepancy was there. How did they sort this discrepancy? And you need to hear out all those stories. You need to apply your judgment, and then you have to come with an answer. I hope I answered all these questions. I think there's no more questions here, sir. Mr. Shikesh?
Yeah. You have answered all the questions. There are plenty of questions. I am happy that participants have asked so many questions.
Yes.
But the use of big data that you have spelled out is indeed in need of our. and it's not only for the purpose of internal audit, but to raise the suspicion in case of frauds and the use of data. And it's very important. And you have correctly spelled out. Thanks for this. Thanks for it.
Yes, sir. Just in addition to that, it's not
Yeah.
only for the audit. Now it's also for the auditee. Even for their operational reasoning, they can use this big data in a big way so that their operational efficiencies can be improved.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So as an auditor, we can recommend that and score some good points on that.
Yeah. But looking at the response of the participants, I think we should wait for a couple of more minutes for the questions to.
There was one question on any course available in ICA to learn data analysis. There is a certificate on internal audit course available. I think that also covers some data analytics part in the curriculum.
Right.
You can look into
Right.
that. Yeah.
I think officials from the institute may know more about the courses available with the institute. Fine. I think there are no more questions in the question Q&A box. So can we wrap up?
Yes, I think we can.
Yeah. So
thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mani sir, for a wonderful discussion. And the internal audit universe is now tech-based, technology-based. And you have correctly highlighted the use of AI, bots, various tools available like IDEA and all. So to summarize, thank you so much for this wonderful discussion, and thanks the Internal Audit Standards Board also for organizing this wonderful webinar. And I also thank all the participants for joining across the country who have joined this webinar of hotel industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I also thank the Institute and our chairman, Chitale sir, from the Board of Internal Audit. Thanks for this opportunity. Let's keep meeting. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much. Hello. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.